Here we go. What up, what up, what up? Yo, 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 welcome to another Free Play Friday. Doing some Fat Man Fridays. It's been a long day. I am tired. Why is this not connected to Twitch? Looking for a clip real quick. Tired. I'm like ready to fall asleep, so I'm sure that's gonna make me play super awesome. Alright, so I'm gonna clip that. I'm gonna clip out of that. Keep this going. Why do they get 2 kills when I down that? Sorry, so sorry. I'm trying to focus on the get this clip together. Alright, you know what? That's cool. I'm gonna do this clip. What's up, babe?
Opie really wants the wings, so I'm gonna give Chips one.
Give Chibs a wing?
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna rip the meat off the bone, I guess, right?
You're gonna do something about showing all the shoe parts.
Yeah, no.
Oh shit, was I on there?
Yeah, I turned it off.
Whoops.
Quickly. Sorry.
My fault.
Alright, that's cool. Alright, so. Publish that. Keep that from that. Let's do another one of these with another one of that and another one of this. Create the dashboard. Okay. Alright, so all that's done. So let's get started. Wait, what? I just checked. Okay, he's not on. That's just a glitch from last time. Any one of those three. Or Bloodhound works. Okay. I really am digging these skins here. Like this is one of my favorites right there.
It's gonna be a long
Gibraltar as a teddy bear, and then Octane as a reindeer, as a Rudolph. Loving it.
Here's the story. I woke up, saw my
Don't feel.
Your winter may be long, but this
Look at it, loving it. So I am super tired. I may fall asleep on stream. So that's just gonna be a thing that might happen.
down there and up here. Well, a bamboozler never reveals his secret. You know what? Can we record another take? I don't feel like I understand what my motivation is on this one.
Trust your senses.
Would follow.
My thesis, the willing will survive.
They'll never catch me. Kaja. And now a word from your champion.
Get ready. Moving out.
I just froze some Bloodhound. I think I start with like a scout. Oh, they changed it. This is a terrible loadout. Damn, actually, let me,
My process of elimination through squad. Attention, my lovely people. The train has started moving.
oh, Lifeline gets that? I was lining them up with, Yo. Yo.
You're mechanical.
Nothing much. What's happening, buddy?
Looking for some
Yeah.
Let me invite Zero here.
0-1?
Yeah, Zero's in there. Lobby.
Ah, that sneaky motherfucker.
I know. So what's been going on?
Nothing, bro. Just living the dream, you know what I mean?
Living the dream. I think my Xbox is broken now, like just for you.
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't tell me when
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
like it announces when everyone else like goes online except for you.
Well, double check, make sure I'm one of your favorites.
You are. You're my
Oh,
favorite.
I'm the favorite. You hear that, chat? I'm the favorite.
Broadcasting live on Mixer. Title Apex. Ooh.
So,
Big Bad Rich 78. Thanks for the follow, mate.
Rich, thanks for the follow,
enthusiastic at the
buddy.
moment.
I got all the enthusiasm you need, buddy. Thanks for the follow. We love it.
Are you right?
Loving it. Living a dream, baby. Living a dream.
It's like,
Enthusiasm.
it's like be kinda okay.
Alright, I sent Zero an invite to the party.
Yeah, I invited him too, but he didn't join me.
He's in your lobby though?
Yeah.
Might be something good this way.
Not the top really.
The train is stopping at this station.
Think I may have been spotted.
Wait, I
Oh,
don't
broke their shield.
I forgot I completed that challenge.
You shielding up, bro?
My
sure that?
god. Have you seen all the new stuff they've added?
Yeah, man. I really like all these.
Strike missile,
Oh, no.
science dog. Oh, it's got coffee on it. C4H8, I think, then CL2. The Pathfinder spray.
I really
Amazing.
like the
A loot tick.
No! Oh, damn it, damn it, damn it. I really like the Gibraltar and the Octane skin. Big fans.
Oh, the ones that are
Yeah.
out now.
And I feel like I'm
They
stating
released a
the obvious here,
bobblehead
but
Marvin.
yep, we have our
I
champion.
actually want to buy that. So the Octane and the Gibraltar, yeah. I love the Gibraltar one.
Yeah, I'm really digging in the Gibbies.
See, I wish I had money to buy some of these, but I
Yeah.
don't. So I'm
I
a
mean,
poor
money
motherfucker.
is tight. Hey, chat, you hear that? Armored Ozzy needs some skins for Christmas. Give him all of your money now.
Baby. Just enter your bank details and the expiration date and the 3 digits on the back of your
Do it.
parents' credit
Do
card.
it. Do it now. Do it now.
Do it now. Hey, Zero's here. Is Zero gonna join
I
though?
don't know, bro. What is?
Maybe he's got one. Does Zero smoke?
No.
anything? I was gonna say maybe he's gone for a cigarette
Maybe
break or
he's.
something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, he's talking in the game.
No. Maybe he's not. Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
he's just joined. There we go.
Maybe he wasn't getting the invites. I don't know. Yo,
My God, Zero, how could you
I know.
reject
It's
us
been
like
forever and a day.
What are you talking? Oh, did you send me 2
Yeah.
invites? I didn't hear.
We sent you like 50 of them.
Sent you a bunch of invites.
Oh, geez, that's weird. That was the first one that made an audio notification.
Disappointing.
Yeah, man. Super disappointment.
I'm joking.
I'm
bro, it's all
not. I'm
good.
so disappointed.
I just have to get top finishes. Oh, I need to capture the Winter Express.
Oh, you want to do the Winter Express? We can do that.
No, please no. I've already done
Okay.
so much of that.
Yeah,
today,
it was.
and it's
Driving me insane. Yesterday, I was like, I stopped streaming at like 12:30 because I couldn't take it anymore. Like, I just didn't want to play Apex anymore. I was over it.
Yeah, sometimes it gets annoying.
People kept on reporting me yesterday, and I kept on getting kicked from games because they were reporting me for cheating.
I mean,
So
price you
I
gotta
was
pay when you're so
What were they
good.
doing?
They were reporting me for cheating, so I was getting kicked from games.
Oh.
So I would have like full gold armor and stuff, and because I really love the Havoc and I have like a purple stock on it and stuff like that, it makes it, because I know the recoil control pad, like I'm pretty accurate with it, and people always think it's hacking, so they report me for stuff like that. And then I get
Yeah.
kicked from the game, and it's just like, you're kidding me, I had full gold loadout and we would have easily won that.
Cause they ain't nothing but a bunch of bitches.
Which gun is
Ha-
it, though, did you say, Ozzy? That you're
The
really
Havoc.
good with?
The
Oh, yeah.
Havico. Oh, let's go to the
Haviok.
Mirage thing.
Where are we going? Mechanic.
Go to Mirage's party.
I love this place.
I don't. I have a lane.
Does anyone need to press the
Yes.
thing up here? The
Okay,
button is
so
there
that's
for
how
you
we
to
do
press
it.
Like, the button is right there on
Okay.
that red one.
So does it count as a team, or does it? Each person has to press it.
Are we supposed to be doing something special here? or just fine?
We had to push a button. I pushed the
Fight
button.
like
I don't know if it counts for the team.
God, I can't
I know that music is crazy loud. There.
I just turned my shit
Zero, now
down.
you go press the button quick. Go press the button up.
What button? What? Oh, okay.
Right here, boys.
I'm coming.
I've only got a
Okay,
Mozart
coming,
beat.
coming, coming, coming.
Wait, pick me up, yes.
How do I get there? Oh, there's.
I,
Oh, there's somebody behind me.
No, he's getting chased. He's getting chased.
Behind you.
Oh shit! Shit.
Oh my god, this is so rough. I'm just gonna hide.
Just jump off,
Yeah.
mechanic. Jump off.
He's
and we'll
coming
fall
back.
down.
Jump,
He's coming back.
Jump,
Jump off.
jump. I'm down here. I'm waiting on you guys.
Of course he'll fucking finish me, the pussy.
Reloading. Hey, got our squad mate's banner.
I'll grab my guns.
I'm gonna grab a peacekeeper to the face.
Yeah. That wasn't a peacekeeper.
I'm gonna grab a triple take to the face.
I
Exactly.
don't know if a ghost can pick up a gun.
Yes, it can. What do you mean?
Ghosts, polterghosts can.
Poltergeist.
You know what?
They're
You
called, thank you.
don't.
But gosh,
Poltergeist.
Yeah, you don't gotta
German
get
for
all
ghosts.
German on me, bro.
Yeah. Bro, I don't know why I'm getting 800 XP now, but in the games I was just having, I was getting 93,000 XP on the Winter Express.
What? That's crazy. That's a ridiculous amount of XP.
Like, I've got screenshots of it and stuff like that. I got 93,000 XP, and it's just like, what the hell?
That's pretty ridiculous. But
Ultima OXC.
I just got the new scout skin for completing the Mirage thing. It looks pretty silly.
Oh, I like that one. It's a
Yeah.
nutcracker.
So do you have any idea how this fucking stupid scoring works in that Winter Express? Ozzy?
Yeah.
Because because okay, let me
Yeah.
say first, we were playing multiple games last night. The other teams would both have like 2 caps, right?
Yeah.
And we would win the final round without a capture just by being the last one alive, and we were
Yeah.
still second place.
So like we never
How
capped
does
it,
that shit work?
and we only won
'Cause
one game, and then we
you
would
need-
come in second place.
Yes. You need to get 3 captures or 3 kills. Like 3 of your squad being the last standing.
Yeah,
So you
but
have to do
how
that
could
3
we come
times.
in? If they count as the same point value, how could we get only a single win in a round and the other teams had 2 caps each, and we were
'Cause they
still
had
second
obvious-
place.
They had gotten previous.
Right, but how did we come in second place
No,
though?
what-
If they got
Out of the whole,
I don't know about the placing like that, but I know about the scoring with like the caps and all that. 'Cause
yeah, but
I had
your
it where
caps
we had
can't
0
count.
caps and we came second somehow, and the top
Okay,
2
yeah,
teams
well
had
that's all
2
I'm
each.
saying. Can you explain it?
I don't know. I think it's just breaking.
it's just
Broken.
Yeah.
breaking,
Dremlock,
constantly
default
breaking.
plugin.
Dremlock! Thanks for the follow, bro.
Stay on me. I'm the jump man.
Cart man, bro.
I'm gonna give this up because I gotta finish my post.
I think I got hosted by the guy I got hosted by before because I've had like 7 follows just in a row. No one's been typing anything in my chat.
Yeah, I don't like that. Zero, you're a jump master now.
I'm
Ow.
in the train yard.
No, Zero.
Don't
we have to go
pee
here,
in the
here,
train
and here,
yard.
And here and here and here and here. Go here, Zero. No, we need to go here. Right there. Right there.
Crash into the mountain.
I'll jump all the way to Germany and
No, Zero.
I don't know.
Shove them pings up your ass.
Put a short in your
Okay.
left headset
Yeah.
speaker.
Then you'll be deaf.
Why did everyone come to my one? I said I'm going over
Uh,
here. Everyone came here.
I didn't even hear you say
I
that.
did.
I was aiming at it the whole time. I was trying to smear you off the side of the car, but it didn't work out.
I heard you.
That's a
It
joke.
was just like, I did hear you. but
Yeah, I
didn't
heard you,
care.
but go fuck yourself, basically.
Oh, I was gonna say that you.
Oh man, I jumped.
Where's the enemies?
They ran away because. Oh no, I hear them. I hear them.
So sexy.
Oh, you guys are P2020.
Okay, I'm coming down.
You need one if you don't have it.
Hi.
You heard me say, "Oh, I was a P2020." You're gonna jump in my building and take whatever was there.
Hi.
Now I got 2 P2020s, mother bitch.
He's not even gonna thank me for it. How
Here,
rude.
Joe, have a 301.
That'd be swell.
You didn't say thank you. I feel
Thank you.
disturbed.
Oh, crap. Drop it. There we go.
I
Here's a
didn't get thanked.
baby. Yeah.
I didn't get thanked. How could you, Zero?
How's that?
This man had twin 2020s.
Light ammo here.
Oh, double tap.
Little 20 twin.
You wanna go over there?
Sure.
Or this way.
Because then Zero can hit the button.
Yeah, let's get Zero to hit the button.
Come on, Zero. We need you to hit the button.
We're at.
At
Yeah,
the
mook.
Mirage thing. Don't call people mooks. That's not cool.
See, finally, someone that knows what it is. You're not a mook.
Is that the same thing as a walk?
A bit more racist.
It's not that racist.
I've got a godfather who's actually Italian, and my dad's like his friend from college, and, or was, and oh crap,
Enemy taken
Ozzy,
down.
you're a million miles
Yeah,
away.
and he's
crap.
just slaughtering people.
I don't know how to even get up there. Okay, I can unsee now.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to get up there
Got an enemy.
either.
Giving my shields a recharge.
You can climb the wall to the left. It gets a little lower,
Okay.
the rock wall. So,
Enemy taken down.
oh, okay, I'm with you. I'm with you, Ozzy. Oh shit, I'm kind of stuck on this.
Give me your armor. Okay, one of them's got a gold stuff, right?
There's a bunch of boxes here already. You didn't.
Wait, it's another squad.
Yeah, good job. Good job, Ozzy.
Forget that.
Is there still somebody with us up here?
Level 3.
There's another enemy.
Yeah, I hear somebody, yeah.
Yes.
Not too far from ring. Got 10.
Using grapple.
Somebody zipping?
He's using a zip line somewhere.
Oh, in here. Yeah.
Nice, Zero.
That was you.
Over here, there's a wraith. It looks like. I know it's a lifeline. I just missed all my shots. Still missed shots.
She's hurt real
Wait,
bad.
where is she?
Up here. Oh, she got me, and there's a robot. Well, still, Lifeline's still alive. She's hurt bad. She's healing.
Nice. Gracias, sir.
Oh, I'm kill leader because I just killed the kill leader.
Yeah, I bitched out there.
Thanks. Good looking out.
Yeah, man, I got him.
Bitch moves.
I was like blocking all their bullets with my face and stuff.
I blocked every bullet. What do you mean? It's just like, I don't know. I just thought it was cool.
It was the coolest. I got a Phoenix kit for you, Zero, if you're into that weird stuff.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm gonna put a Spitfire in here if anybody wants it.
Hurry yeah.
Oh, there's some good stuff in here if anyone wants it in that one. Yeah, mechanic, do you like my new skin?
Ooh, a 2x sight.
My new R99 skin.
Let's see, what's it look like?
Look at this.
Ooh,
It's candy cane.
fancy. Here you go, Zero.
I know, right?
What up? Oh, thanks.
Phoenix kit here. Patches you up good.
I'm gonna hold on to that in case I find some syringes
Okay.
here.
To know.
You do you. You live your... Here you go.
Syringe here.
2 syringes.
Heavy ammo. Energy ammo here. Extended heavy mag here.
Boom, boom, boom.
I'm
boom,
going
boom.
energy. If anyone has any spare energy
Okay.
ammo.
I just pinged some of that boxo. There's 20 more energy here. Oh, and there's a
Ooh,
blue
I'll come
energy
steal
clip
it.
in here. I don't know how. Oh, Wall's here.
Extended energy mag.
Thank you. Oh, zone's here. Yeah. Oh, go get the button quick.
Oh,
Mechanic, troll,
over
show Zero
here,
where the button is.
Zero. How do
Oh,
we get
shit.
up? Oh, climb
Okay.
up this ladder.
Just
And
climb
right
up.
here.
Let's relocate here.
And then yeah, you push that button. There you go. And you did the challenge.
Yay!
You gotta get out of there, Zero. You're dying.
I'll come up to you guys. Just give me a second, would ya? I have to saucy, not a meatball. Saucy,
There's something
saucy,
purple
saucy.
right there. I don't know what that is.
Go this way.
I gotta do that
Backpack.
Phoenix
What?
kit now. It
I'm
would
going for
help
it.
me.
I'm getting
Yeah,
it.
grab it.
My backpack.
What are you saying?
My backpack. Gracias.
Here you go, mechanic.
Oh,
saved
thank
some for you.
you.
Wee-hee! Zoom. And then we have to go out of zone. Well, we don't even have to go out of zone.
What the?
What I did for some reason.
Me too.
What's the matter, Zero?
I was just wondering where you. I was like up here already, and then you guys came back up here. I was like, where are you guys?
We're just
Mechanic was just grabbing
Yeah,
the
man.
backpack.
the
There, okay.
purplest of the backpacks.
What, do you want us to not have full gear?
No,
I
I
need
guess I do.
I need all
Feel
my
bad now.
hoarding space. How can I be a hoarder with no space?
Word. Newspapers are going to be important in the
Yeah.
future. You must have
They
every
won't.
issue.
Standard stock.
Yes,
Ammo here.
this is true.
Come on, let's
Alright, I'm grabbing these syringes.
let's go.
I'm grabbing these syringes and stuff.
Always better than
Brosy. Oh, train.
Watch out, train.
I'm gonna ride the train.
Ah! No, go squash.
Come on, there you go. Oh, off.
Okay, jump
Okay.
off. Where are you guys going?
I was,
We're going to the
yeah,
fight,
but I
aren't we?
thought we were riding the train. I didn't know what was happening, man. I was just trying to fit in.
Oh, just like everything in your life.
Just like everything in my life. You're right.
barrel stabilizer. Barrel stabilizer.
It's like
I was just
everything
trying
in
to
my
fit
life.
it in.
That's what
That sounds a
she
bit-
said.
We need to talk about your wording. See shield cells there if anyone needs them.
Oh,
Oh, here's a purple energy mag.
60, no shield.
Right there by the fence.
Okay, yeah, we're with you. We're with you.
Did 100, no
There's
shield.
another one right there. Or right around there.
Oh, there's two
Down the
boxes.
hill, I guess.
Up there above me, I think.
Oh, here he is, down the hill. Two of them.
Oh, gold shield. You got a gold shield, motherfucker.
Running around to the left. Knocked one.
Nice.
Knocked two.
I'm doing some damage, yo, with my
Finished one.
thingy, yo. Oh.
I guess they did get rid of the trajectory thing on grenades. Oh no, oh, only the 5?
Maybe. That's what I use most often. Yeah, we're coming.
Quick, guys. He's low. Yes. Can I get him? Oh, that was so loud in my ear.
Bad.
Good work. We're inside the next ring.
Yeah, Zero, there's purple armor on that one up there.
Up here, okay, thanks.
I hear more shooting.
Oh, here.
quickly.
There was a purple energy mag in that building up there,
Meant
dude.
to, yeah.
Way to
No, I
tell
was
one.
trying to drop a med
I
kit.
did, I pinged it, but...
Here.
No, it's all good, it's all good.
Okay.
Here,
Oh, I got
here,
another
here,
gold.
med kit, med kit, med kit.
Shield cell here. Patching myself up.
Let's check out this area.
Oh, I've got to make it.
Okay.
Body shield here. Level 3.
I might grab one though.
Yeah, good.
Syringe here.
Here we go.
Shotgun
No,
Where are
go
they
ahead,
resing?
I got plenty now.
Where are they reviving
Oh,
us?
Oh, yeah, I do,
don't
I
see.
do, I do.
I don't see.
Over there.
It sounds like, okay. Oh, there's 50 boxes up here.
Yeah, I think they were looting when we...
When I came by.
Ooh, I need that
'Cause one of them
sight so
had no
bad.
health at all.
There we go.
Okay, let's go push these guys.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okie dokie.
1 minute. Rings nearby.
Oh my god, my game just like made the biggest sound and that hurt my ears. Okay, there's one
They're right
inside.
below us, right below us.
Yeah.
And there's 2 inside, at least.
Okay.
Okay, there's Watson fence over there.
There's 3 guys.
Yeah, there are 2 different squads though. Back there.
Don't go down. Don't go down.
Shit, yeah. I'm healing shields. I don't have any grenades. You guys have nades for them?
Yeah, I got some grenades.
I'm having to take a
Okay.
Phoenix, boys. Can you take me for
Yep.
4 seconds?
Yep. One just, I saw, well, never mind. I don't know where they're at now. Probably healing as well. Oh. Got one kid down here.
Oh, next you got it down.
Care package coming in.
There's still, that Watson is still alive. Is he?
Oh, there's somebody else back there.
It's hurt real bad, hurt real bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the guy I was shooting from before.
Dude,
Still
we are
survived. I
raping
thought he was
kids.
doing. Oh, don't see that.
Yeah, man, we are getting some rapes in. Rape time.
You
They're
too.
raping us. They're raping us.
Help me.
Kurt Russell when he on that South Park. Evil woodland
Oh, of course
critters.
it would be South Park, wouldn't it?
Shield cell here.
Yeah, Kurt Russell goes in to kill these satanic forest creatures, and him and his team get raped by them.
Raping us.
It's like they're raping us.
Damn, look at us. We are trashing fools. I'm loving it.
R99.
We are. We are.
Heavy mag here. Level 3.
Oh, we definitely need some more throwables.
I'm going G7R99.
Close range.
All right. Here's an R99 if you. Oh, you got
Oh, I've
one. I'm
already
sure.
got one.
Okay.
Level
Wait, actually, I'll do. Should I do 301?
That's what I'm doing.
I don't know. Here's 29 lot rounds though.
I'll need some range.
There's a
50
bunch.
million
There's
lot
a.
rounds in here. Oh yeah, here's
You need, like, a-
163.
Yeah, I've got 560, so it's fine.
All right.
There's a 3x sight
Okay,
if
boys,
you
let's
want
get
the
the hell out
3x
of
sight.
here.
You said you need range, right? Okay.
Yeah, I've got one. Kraber?
Ooh,
Kraber question mark?
I don't know. I'm kind of liking my loadout.
Kraber exclamation mark? Bitter, bitter,
Yeah,
bitter.
no.
Mastiff bitch.
Yeah. Yep. Super duper.
Do you go to a German school, Ozzy, or do you go to school on your base or something?
It's an international school, so they speak English and German.
Alright,
push up?
push up like a bra, baby.
Mein Freund, schnell.
What?
They're fighting.
Well, yeah, I heard him, but I don't know exactly where. Yeah, I think we're going the right way, though. I think you're right.
Zelle Tete, help me.
Oh, fuck! Oh, fuck! I was... Oh,
They're up
where
here.
they at? Where they at?
Up top with mechanic.
I'm trying.
Grab them and I'll
Yo,
self-res.
Oh, they're fucking me up. I gotta
Get
get
up there and
off.
help me.
I can't get up there.
No, jump off.
I'm off.
Okay.
I've been off. They were shooting at me and I dropped off the rope.
They weren't shooting
I
at
don't have
me,
any
they're shooting at me,
grenades.
bro.
Yeah, crawl back.
No, yeah, we're good.
Oh, you
Yeah.
got a self-res. Okay.
Yeah, I had a self-res, bro.
Awesome. I
Okay,
have
it's
no
just one?
nades.
You
Here's
guys-
some nades. Oh, it's just one? Okay. I'm gonna
One
throw
throw.
nades.
Bro, this is
I'm not hitting.
Me neither.
There's still one other squad, so.
It's just her. Oh
no,
wait,
there's
no,
two
there
squads
is another
left.
squad.
Oh shit, right here.
I'm coming.
On Ozzy,
I'm
on
coming.
Ozzy. Shit. Got her.
I feel my special on the chick in the tower.
There's another one like right. Oh shit. Over here.
Oh, there's someone to the right too. Alright, the fast guy's down. Right here on me. Right in front of me.
I'm coming to you, Joe. Coming to you.
It's just one. The fast guy's down. It's a Watson.
I hit him a little. I'm looking. Shit. How can she see me through the fucking smoke like that? She's almost dead. I'm dead. She's right here.
Woo, motherfucker. Miss Cassandra, welcome to the show.
No one's killing my mates, bro.
Not today, Satan.
You are the Apex champions.
Are you streaming
Yes, sir.
too, Joe? Noise. Oh damn, Ozzy, way to go.
Damn.
9 kills,
Not too shabby. We all did pretty well. Pretty well.
Hell yeah.
We did.
That was a good game.
Thank God for glitches in this game. It just saved me.
What glitch?
So there's a glitch in this game where like if you shoot someone but like they knock you just before the bullet hits them, the bullets don't count, but they're meant to count. Like it's meant to be that it can count and hit you.
Wait,
But-
I'm sorry. We start over just one
Yeah,
more
okay.
time.
So the chick that I was fighting shot at me with the Mastiff, but I shot her just before her bullets hit me. And the glitch is that the bullets then just disappear, which they are meant to hit you, but it didn't happen. So that's why I was still up. Otherwise, I would have been down.
I bet I've been on the bad end of that before.
Zeddy, welcome to the stream, buddy.
What up, Zed?
Stop by and say hi. Let's see. Well,
When do you think they're gonna buff the L-Star?
I don't know.
Because they
Never use it.
apparently. Yeah, because apparently they're meant to be making the damage more and the recoil less. Yo, Savage, thanks for the follow, mate.
We're live now. Stop by and say hi and get more Fat Boy Friday fun.
All that matters is being the last one. Amateur hour's over. Time for the big leagues.
Time to upload that to my Insta live now. Stop by and say hello. Drop by and say hello. Just copying mechanics. Yeah,
I mean, whatever works. I mean, it's clearly working for you better. So.
exactly.
It
Hey, I'm
goes pretty swell there. Zeddy, you missed a pretty good game. We all did pretty well. We came home with the dub. Yeah, I mean, we're getting them W's out here. We're just collecting them. I mean, like Pokemon.
That's right.
Gotta catch them all. But not them.
Mechanic clutched it for us.
But not them dirty ass L's. We don't touch them L's.
We don't touch rounds. We do SML.
We don't do SM.
Joe,
Oh, what?
Jump master.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Take it.
You-
Jump somewhere.
Deep dog. Bro. Joe, you launched solo.
What? What? How did that happen?
You launched solo as well.
Alright, cool.
Hey, go here, Joe. Oh, we're gonna be stuffed.
Yeah, it's gonna
bro.
be rough. Good thing it's not ranked. Speaking of which, we should play ranked.
Oh, if it was ranked,
Yeah,
I'd actually,
probably.
like, stab you.
Stab me with your German ass eyes.
You got a gun
No.
on?
Got body shields out here for both of yous.
Body shield here.
There's a devotion.
Level 1.
I gotta have Luki
There's 2 energy ammos in there.
and the
too.
alternator.
I got a 45 and a Mozambique.
Oh, no, no.
I'm taking the.
Or hammer point, and there
Boys-
was a 2020 in one of those bins. if
Oh, I
anyone
just
wants
dropped
it.
the Mozambique too.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'm gonna try it for now. Unless you want it, you want the hammer point?
No.
Okay.
I don't. It's cool, but I don't.
I need a bago.
Ozzy,
point?
can you spare 1 box of energy?
Sure.
Or you don't.
No,
Never mind. I'll just
take it.
find some and we'll
Take
talk.
it.
Sure.
Thanks. Okay.
right here.
I just want 1 box. I just got a triple take.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As soon as he says no to hammer points,
Yeah.
hammer points.
No,
are
I
everywhere.
picked up. I found
Yeah.
one. I went hammer point. So it's gonna be fun.
Of course, mechanic finds the best
Yeah,
armor.
man. It was in my.
Oh,
You
you
seem
got
to
that
be
purpleness.
always the one that finds all the purple armor up first.
Because yeah, man, purple is the color to be.
It's a purple. I can't remember the song, but it was like a purple people eater.
Somebody
Oh yeah,
came in and
there's
killed
somebody right over there.
Or at
right
me,
there.
rather. At me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, somebody.
Bro, I'm so far away from you.
Oh shit, oh shit. Oh, I have no meds. I'm pretty hurt.
Where
There's
are
a
they?
Phoenix right there. I only saw
many?
one.
Right around here. Oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. Right here,
Okay.
2 of them. 2 of them.
No, stop healing.
One guy shot you.
Damn. Right here below you too. There's 2 of them.
Oh no. Nice.
Fuck
Good-
off!
good
What
try,
the hell
good
is
try.
that?
Yeah, let's
That
hop
is
on that
trash,
rank
man.
shit.
Yeah, why couldn't I grapple onto the stairs?
I think you. Well, you just grappled like 5 seconds before it hadn't recharged.
Oh, their friend is there as well. With purple armor, I would have lost that anyway. But otherwise, yeah,
Well,
I couldn't grapple onto the stairs for some reason.
You want to change it to rank, Joe?
Fudge,
Oh,
yes.
never mind. My bad.
I'm over 3,000 points. Let's hit fucking. What's next? Platinum. Let's hit platinum.
Oh, what are you guys up to?
Gold. Oh no, I'm sorry. Gold. Gold 3's next. I'm dumb as shit. Gold 3's next. I'm not even close to platinum.
Bro. Shut up. It's fine. Let's just do this.
Let's just get that.
Get out our gold polish.
Streaming now. Come watch. Mechanic.
Yeah,
guy.
man. Watch mechanic break his lug nuts.
Come watch mechanic. And wait, Zero, do you have an Insta?
No. Well, I do, but I haven't.
Well, it's time to start using it, bro.
How could you? You're disappointed.
Yeah, I don't know what to put on it.
Pictures of your beautiful face.
Besides a winning smile. Yeah, pictures of my beautiful face. I'll be an Instagram
Yeah,
host.
man.
Ooh, yes. Look at that.
Yo, there's an Instagram account
Wow.
I
look at
follow
these rank
that is
ranks.
just. He must just steal pictures from other accounts. It's mostly like chicks in either provocative situations or very little clothing. He also posts like other stuff also. Sometimes it's just like pictures of like trees, which I think is like he actually is like in the park and takes pictures, but everything else is like weird like sexy stuff. So
And what, he gets a lot of followers and
yeah,
stuff?
I mean, I followed him because it's like a lot of, and I've even left comments like this where like he'll leave this picture, and I'm like, yo, your pictures need more like a caption because like I need more information about this. It's just like some crazy shit that happens, and there's never a caption. Like right here, the reason I brought him up is because it's a picture of two chicks. They're in like a beer store. They're dressed in, one's like a, I guess it's a bathing suit. I don't know. It looks like a bra, but like has like a knot tied in the center, and like a skirt, and the other's in like a almost like a schoolgirl outfit, but it's like a white t-shirt and like a skirt thing, and they have like the skirt pulled up over her butt, and that's it. No caption, just like this random picture of these two chicks.
Huh.
There you go. I just uploaded my thing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, his thing is uploaded.
You just uploaded your video 6 minutes
Yeah,
ago. How
man.
could you? Why isn't a video of us? Why is it a video of you? With
Because I got that together before the stream, bro.
random? Just like, oh, you're not too worthy.
Yeah, I mean, and I never know if I'm gonna do any good. And I also, when I try to make a clip and then share it, it doesn't let me share it the same day anymore.
You could have posted the win mechanic.
It doesn't let me share it the same day. I have to like wait 24 hours or some shit. I don't know if it's 24 hours, but like, if I were to make a clip right now, it wouldn't let me download it and share it.
Fuck
no
this
weapons.
game,
I have no
honestly, bro. I have
Here,
nothing.
I gotta.
And this dude.
I can
is
give you a
such
301 Z-Dog.
Gotta watch each other's back.
Yeah, it's just a skill to be fucking trash at the game.
Yeah, they're coming
Yeah.
toward me, I think.
Here, you don't have a gun? Let's go hide.
Thank you. Oh, I just got
Oh
it.
yeah,
2020,
come
but-
get this.
Can you guys just get placement? Like, don't try and fight, just
Okay.
get placement.
Take that 301. Just placement? Alright, let's just run away then. You don't want us to try to
Yeah.
get you back?
I mean, we would have to be
Yeah.
like top. We'd have to be
Top 10,
really.
five-ish.
I mean, we're to not lose points. We're going to have to do more than that.
No, it's about top 10.
Oh, top
top
five maybe. But
Yeah.
Yeah, top 10 alone
mean-
doesn't give it to you. Yeah, still have to like get kills and stuff.
no, yeah, we're losing 24 points a match to enter it.
That's the one reason I don't play ranked is because of all the sweats in it. No one plays it except for sweats, and it's like takes so long to get into a game.
I don't know. I wasn't that bad. I enjoy rank. I feels
Yeah, often we do better.
it feels better to be risking something. To me.
Gotta risk.
Yeah,
it for
man.
biscuits.
It's like,
Well, you don't have to risk.
well, I
it
mean,
for
like,
biscuits.
who's just giving out biscuits, man? Nobody's just giving out biscuits.
Me?
Yeah. Let's see what we do if we do make top 10 here. Okay, we're still at the entry fee of 24 right now, so we'll see what happens if we do make top 10.
Oh, I think it goes down to 12. And Mechanic, do you have any tips for staying awake at night, like instead of going to sleep?
Coffee. If coffee doesn't work, cocaine. If cocaine doesn't work, crack cocaine. If crack cocaine doesn't work,
Well, I can't get cocaine. I've found that sherbet works. Just snort.
I mean,
some
sherbet does work, yes.
Yeah, it's great snorting it. You get this fizz in your nose. It feels really weird.
Yeah.
It's like a massage from the inside of your nose.
I mean, if that doesn't sound like a winning thing to do, I don't fucking know what does. An inside the nose massage. So we're top 12 already. That was a piece of cake.
Just get to top 5.
Yeah.
It's 5 a.m. for me. I haven't had any sleep at all tonight.
You are a maniac.
Is this just like the time you usually get to game or whatever?
No, that's because Mechanic's online at this time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he stays up. It's bad for your health, bro. Someone's being respawned right over there.
I think I give two shits
So we should
about
probably
my
run the other direction if we want placement.
Fuck, that hurt. Yeah, well, which
yeah,
way
that's
is the
fine.
zone?
Whatever. Yeah, we won't know for 2 minutes.
So you're building a bookcase, Mechanic. How could you?
Yeah, well, I have the stuff to build it. All but the shelves. I'm not sure what the shelves are going to look like. I don't know if I want like one. And because it's going to be a ladder bookcase, so it's going to get smaller as it goes up. So I don't know if I want like. It's going to be the bottom shelf's going to be like a foot deep. And like 2 feet wide, and then like as it goes up, it's still gonna be 2 feet wide, but it's just not gonna be as deep. So I don't know if I want to be like one like solid piece of like a 1 by 2 foot piece of wood, and then just make it all like one piece, or if I want to like do like instead of 1 12-inch piece of wood, do like 2 6 or 3 4, and then like work my way that way.
Yeah. Have you seen the new Xbox?
No, I haven't seen it. I read
saw
about
that.
it. Like a
It
month
looks
ago.
like a freaking server.
I mean, that's
Yeah, kinda. It's neat.
It's just
like
a rectangle. Like just, it looks like 2 cubes stacked on top of each other. It's literally all it is.
yeah, and it's
That would
like
be stupid. Why would you have it so tall?
Yeah, I thought that was strange too. It's like the width of an Xbox controller and the height of 3 of them.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, they said you could set it horizontally or vertically, but that would
I
look
do not
weird
believe
horizontal.
that at all.
I mean,
Because half the time when they say that, stuff breaks and they're just like, oh, you shouldn't have
Well,
done this then. So we can't
they're
give you
probably
all
gonna be
fun."
going
Right.
digital soon. Like I bought a new Xbox, and I bought it was the all digital package, and I thought it was because it came with 3 games to download digitally. No, it doesn't even have a slot to
Yeah.
take discs. You can only play digital games on it, digital downloads.
See, I'd be fine with only playing digital games since that's the only thing.
Yeah,
I play.
well, I bought it
digital
for my
games.
brother, but then like when I realized, I'm like, well, shit.
I remember
Yeah, I'm
the
like shit.
story.
I'm gonna give him all my old games,
good
and like
story.
he's gonna buy used games. So like, this isn't gonna work for him, so I need to,
See, look, mine's
Bite the
14
bullet,
when you're at
and
9
I
squads
need
left.
to
8 squads left.
use this brand new system.
I'm waiting for this.
No, wake up. Wake up. You gotta go put your makeup. You gotta eat a bunch of takeout.
Eat a bunch of takeout. Some
There you go. Oh, I see
distraction.
people
Gonna die
over there.
right when angels deserve to die.
Yep, and there's a person over there.
Let's go this way. Enemy over there.
Now she's
Are they
looking
coming
at
toward
you.
us?
No, they're
not
not.
yet. They're ballooning. They probably will be.
Oh, she's teabagging with mechanic.
What? No, they just took a balloon.
69 minutes. My stream's been going for.
Nice.
Rings nearby. 1 minute.
I mean, 69 is a lot of work.
No, it's
You
not.
know, like, cause you can't be on top, cause then like they just like the weight of you. You know what I mean, just like choke them, and they just like never breathe again. So you got to be on the bottom, and then you gotta like bend your neck up, and it's just like a whole bunch of
My big sausage would choke you
yeah,
to death.
yeah. God, they're ballooning up. Oh, we gotta move to the ring, which is that direction.
Let's check out this area.
All right, if you want to go, let's
People just flew, so we have to be careful.
whatever. Oh,
Right
where
over
they
there.
fly?
You see that yellow
sure.
smoke, like that direction,
Not too
over by like the fuel
0.
depot.
Look, 8 squads left and we're at -4 points.
Yeah, I do. I do.
People are here. People are here.
You do? Nice.
Oh, I hear them. I hear them. They're moving past. They're moving past.
Rings moving. Hustle up.
I think. Maybe not. I saw one running past us. Somebody's
Boys need to go
flying.
far.
Yeah,
We
the
can't
ring's
head out of
moving.
Go. Go.
Here, I'll set
Okay,
us a
yeah.
portal. Hold
Good
up,
move.
hold up.
Care package coming in.
All right, look at us getting points, breaking even.
Why didn't you grab my banner?
Cause you a punk.
It's a joke.
It's me, a Joker.
There might be dudes in here.
sausage,
I know
not
there
a
are people
meatball.
past it. You want to
Yeah.
just avoid it?
Until we break even, then we can go die.
I mean, hop in this train.
We're just like,
Oh, there's a dude up the hill, but he didn't see me. I don't believe. He was running to the north.
Better get in the corner, mechanic.
I'm in the corner.
Can I watch out?
I'm in the corner.
You suck.
What-
Eat the ball.
We might break even when one more squad goes down.
It sounds like they're fighting at that village.
Yeah, somebody
Sounds
died.
like someone's
somebody else
healing
died.
right
There we
shield
go. Oh, I thought top 7 gave you some kind of points. I guess not.
Nope. It's 8, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, okay.
It's 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3.
Yeah, like this is crazy. Like people play like this. This is super boring for one, and two, like we're only gonna break even. Like
Yeah, right.
I hear people. I hear them. Yes, +6.
oh, nice. Okay,
Zero, plus
so
6 rep.
if we live till
yeah.
top 6, we make 6 points.
Heck, maybe this storm will bring us top 5. I don't know.
Wait till the storm's
so-
fully in, because you can still get around to
So
your
there's
left, to your
something
mechanic.
for 6 too then, because
Yeah.
we're 6 going
Yeah,
out top
so
5.
6.
That's weird. I don't get it. 8,
I guess
6,
it goes
5,
8,
4,
6,
3,
5,
2,
4. Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought it was like 10, 7,
Probably 10,
5,
8.
3.
Yeah. Probably like 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Contact.
And
Oh,
Mechanic,
now I
have
hear
you
somebody.
read
They're
what
right
it says
outside.
on your gun?
Oh yeah, I hear them. What? Did you see me miss all those shots in the beginning?
Yeah, that was weird.
I was like,
Oh, it didn't give me a kill, that bitch ass game, because
Yep.
we get their teammate out. Damn it.
but we,
You would have got
but
plus
we
10
made
points
6
for that.
Oh,
points.
Yeah, I'm not.
See, if
I'm,
I was
I'm
there
not,
as well,
I
we
ain't
would've-
mad.
Well, yeah, it actually goes up. So making top 10,
Did you enjoy your match? You
it
lost,
goes
please?
from
No.
10 points to 12, and I think every thing after that it goes up 1 or some shit like that.
Oh, I got Apex back.
Oh, I got an Apex back too. All right. More crafting materials.
I need 20 more crafting material, and then I can craft a legendary of my choice.
Alright, so I need to get 3 more top 10 finishes.
Oh, I did all my.
Let's get together and shoot somebody. That's not the song.
Yeah.
Why are you making this?
I'm not making you do anything. You're doing it on your own. I'm not making a minor do anything against his will.
Yes, you are.
I'ma be the Birdman,
Saucy.
Birdman.
Saucy.
Y'all ready for this? Let's get them dubs.
Saucy.
Dub.
I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed.
Alright, sounds good.
I'm joking. Hell no. I'm not going
Fuck
to
sleep.
bed.
You can sleep when you're dead, bro.
Yeah, fuck you, mate.
I'm just saying, bro. You can do that, bro. That could be a thing that you do.
Okay. I can't be bothered doing anything.
Go.
See, I wasn't tired at all throughout the whole night until 6 a.m.
I mean, that happens. Cause you've been up since like down. You're probably pushing 24 hours, or been over for 20.
I've been up
Yeah.
since 6 a.m. I've been up 24 hours straight.
Oh, that sucks. I've done that before. It's rough.
It's sexy, thank you.
Okay. No,
Here
No.
you go. Here you go.
take it. I'm leaving.
Somebody is on top of this car, I think.
No, he's underneath us.
Okay.
That is a Vault key, be careful. Enemy right there.
Okay,
Get
okay,
down
let
before he
me-
gets a Vault key.
I need a better gun,
I
and then
don't.
I'm going for it.
Here, I'm gonna drop this hemlock down. Oh, dude's right in front of you. Dude's right there. I'm coming.
Oh my god, I'm fucking surrounded.
Right here. Wow, what a bitch tries to thirst me. Wow, what a bitch, he thirsted me for no reason.
He was a thirsty motherfucker.
Too many squads.
Yeah, what jump master did that shit?
God damn it, mechanic.
Jump
Why'd you tell us
master
that?
privileges revoked for that motherfucker.
Whoever jumped us there
Diplomatic
was an
immunity.
idiot.
It's been revoked. Bam.
There goes 24 points.
Whoever jumped us there should probably go
I'm
die.
gonna.
Whoever jumped us there should probably go die.
Whoever jumped the stair, whoever jumped the stair, whoever jumped the stair should probably go die, die, die. Yes.
Mechanic, you know what you should also start streaming?
Pickle Rick.
No, Borderlands 2.
I streamed it a little bit. Like
Well, yours
once or
probably
twice.
nicer.
And nobody cared. Nobody came. Nobody likes me.
Damn it. Because I love it.
Nobody
Okay,
likes
so fun.
me. Probably because I'm not Pickle Rick. If I was Pickle Rick, everybody would like me.
I'm a sexy little elf.
You most certainly are not.
Here I am, have a look at me in my thing now. See, look. Sexy little elf.
This is your champion.
Hey, it's me.
It's me, the sexy little elf.
It's me. I'm out here.
It is hot in this room. So hot, I'm gonna eat a pretzel. Part of a pretzel. I don't have a whole pretzel left. Where are you taking us, bulletproof Australian? What? What?
Did you say you're gonna eat part of
Yep.
yourself?
You'll never guess which part.
Why? Break off, mechanic. Break off! When someone says I'm going there, it means get
No.
away.
Guns up here.
R99, boys. With 80 heavy ammo.
Noise.
Yeah, I'll do the energies.
I need
Are
the
you
energy.
using energy?
The anthropology.
You're gonna use energy? No? Yes?
I'll give you 40 or whoever. Yeah, well, Joe, you've got some.
Yeah, I
right?
got.
There's like 180 there if anyone needs
Oh
any.
well,
There's
you
more
have.
here.
I guess you don't need any. Okay.
Like if you just go
Yeah,
past
here's
my
some
trail
over
of
here,
all
too.
the energies. Yeah, exactly.
Turtle.
For you, Zero?
What? Oh, thank you.
I need it.
Oh, I don't got my music playing. That's what I'm forgetting here.
Missing.
You guys want to go toward the skyhook or the fissure or something?
Sure.
Don't mind.
Let me do a little thing in this building.
I'm gonna shoot this down
Oh,
when it
hold
goes
up, hold-
cold. What is that? Did you see that go gold?
Yeah, that was very quick. I mean, that was like a split second. I didn't see the vault key. Do you?
No, there was none in it.
It had red on it, didn't it?
No? Are you okay?
I don't know about that.
It didn't have red on it at all.
Waka waka waka. Wanna hear a funny ass joke? What?
Neither of you wanted this purple.
There was a purple energy clip? Fudge yes.
Yeah, I'll give it.
No,
to
If
one
you're
of you.
not using it, I'll take it. But if you're gonna use it,
I don't need it. It's just on my triple take. I don't really need it.
okay. I'm dropping a blue one.
Where are we going, boys?
Level 3.
Okay, I'll take
Oh,
it.
Zero, grab a
Boys, where are we
fresh
going?
shirt. Wherever you want to go, buddy.
Thank you.
Zero,
He
grab
grabbed
that
the shirt.
I did.
His titties ain't out no more. He got the shirt.
Could you have your titties out in public, Zero? So disappointing.
This
You're a
is
disappointment and a
looted over
disgrace.
here.
Being looted.
I
This was
need
hot
a bag.
I need an extended heavy mag level 2 here. Bag.
Yeah, you know the deal. So much light ammo. Should I switch? Yeah. I'm giving up a double
There's a care
tap here.
package.
If anybody is into that weird shit.
I want a Kraber.
Dude, I need a bag, like
Father, where's my
bad.
Kraber? Please, Father. Bless me with the oh holy Kraber of gods.
No. How about we don't?
Oh, you despise me, Father.
Your father.
What the fuck is that? Oh, that's the.
Oh, there's a blue bag in here. Nobody's telling
Father,
me.
there's no Kraber, you bastard. You wanker.
purple
What?
barrel stabilizer.
What?
I
What?
stole it. Get out of here.
What?
Does anyone have to press the button on this thing anymore?
No. We push the button.
How do you get out of this stupid holding down select to say something shit? Oh
Then
my god.
Press B. You just press B, you idiot.
It's frozen. It's
Oh,
frozen,
yeah.
dude.
That happens.
Okay, now I'm crouching and the shit is still on my fucking screen. There, oh my gosh. Fuck that
All you do,
stupid shit.
like, if it comes
Why
up
can't
with
they
the quick,
fix
you just
that?
press B. Might as
No,
well,
where
isn't
you
it?
hold down select and you can like do a text to speech thing. You might have to turn it on in the options menu first. I'm 99% certain you do. But then if you hold select for a few seconds, it'll come up and let you type something and it'll
It's
say it.
super fun. When it's like, when it fucks up and it's
Yes.
like, ZLG Mechanics, or Zero doesn't know my name, so it's like ZLG MC NLC says
Oh my god, Zero.
77794-11,
Oh, okay.
and I was really just like,
That was fucking
haha, good
disgusting.
job, dipshit. And it like sends like code instead. It's like, I definitely didn't type Morse code. What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, are you saying it doesn't say the words?
Yeah,
It, like,
yeah.
does
Sometimes it'll
something
just be like,
I've never seen
it'll
it
just
do
say
that.
some random shit. Like, mechanic says,
You have a
well,
frog.
not that, but it's like, mechanic says 74:11. Like some like super off the wall
Panic
shit.
says, frog, frog, frog. You
I'm
just, like,
moving
threw
toward
up in their
Joe.
mouth.
Yeah, that was me.
I'm just
Sorry
throwing
about
up
that.
in my mouth.
That sounded so disgusting.
Don't mind me. I'm just
Maybe,
throwing up in my
maybe,
mouth.
maybe you should settle your stomach with a nice bowl of oatmeal and hot sauce.
Yeah, man. Is that what you did? You had a nice. I don't even know what that would be.
You
Just
know, oatmeal, lemon
hot
juice.
Yeah, I was gonna say you had a nice redneck
Fucking
breakfast, but that's not even redneck. That's more like
That's
That's
racist.
just gross. It's more an Amish thing or something.
I don't
calling
think
it
they
racist
believe
now,
in
'cause I don't know why.
hot sauce.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right.
This ain't
Um,
hot sauce. This is cold sauce.
I feel like we should do something or go somewhere, but it's getting a pretty small circle too, so I don't know.
Ah, Jason Bourne.
8 other squads.
Aphrodite.
Aphrodite.
Whatever the hell's Aphrodites. Oh no, I fell off. No, Jason.
Oh, look at this. There's a blue
Shaquille
bag.
O'Neal.
There's a purple shield back here. I'll take the purple shield. I thought I had a purple
yeah.
shield. I don't know why I thought that.
We should jump off before we get like thousands
Okay.
of kilometers away.
Look at this.
See you,
Now it's a
mechanic.
whole
Have a
new.
good
I'm right here, bro.
time. Now it's a home invasion. Quick, let's go. Run, run.
Whoa.
Go.
Yeah, maybe in this case we should wait a minute and see if we can get
Oh,
like top
yeah.
5 or well, even top 6.
Boys, I'm gonna sit up here. This is my hiding spot. No one can come in.
That's pretty. That's probably the most hidden spot on the map, almost. You know.
No, it actually is. I came in on a person
yeah?
that was doing this. That was
I'm
just hiding
inside
up here,
you.
and I completely like.
You
couldn't
weren't gonna
see
share
them.
your bathroom? I'm sharing your body, bro.
Dude, what if we get the circle and like we're top 2 just by doing this?
Just by having a
hiding in
weird
the
orgy in
bathroom?
the sink.
Oh, there's our top 6. Oh, you can come back up. You can... Bathroom punch fest.
Guys, stick in the very corner if you're out, and stop kicking and stuff, because people
Hey.
can hear that.
You guys did it before I did it.
Why you gotta ruin everything, Zero?
There's a care package, yes. Kraber, I'm coming.
We got people over there. They probably see me. They were standing still.
L-Star, you're pissing me off. Okay, I'm coming back.
Yeah. Okay, I see him.
Don't look out the window, just leave.
They're being very suspicious.
I'm pretty sure they saw us, like 99% certain. But still, maybe. Oh well, they might have seen that shit.
Yeah, they may not
But
have seen us
no
but be like,
matter.
wait a minute, that door was just open, wasn't it? Are you having a good little giggle over there? I still see them. They're over there doing the same thing they were doing. Yeah.
They're still there.
Oh, somebody's getting respawned somewhere.
Yeah, it sounds fairly close. Oh, I hear people, dudes.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, they're on this building.
No one move. No one walk. Mechanic still. Let them come in the house and we'll light them up and go skra, skra.
They're here.
Inside. Throw it, Zero.
Didn't hit anything with it.
He just.
Oh, they're right here.
Oh, we got scanned. There's one
I'm
down.
burning the shit out of him.
Yeah.
He just died from my fire.
How's it feel to be a sucker majucka? They're on the roof.
Careful windows.
There's a robot down there.
Hard and bad. Thanks for the purple shield, bitch.
Oh, they're on the hill. Shooting everything
Got him.
Where's
from the
this shit
hill.
happening?
They're
Where
they're
you
over
guys
there.
at? Okay. Yeah, get back in the building. Get back in the building.
I'm coming. Get back upstairs, quick.
Joe, you need a shield cell?
No, I'm good. I think. Oh no,
I'm
yeah, no,
telling
I
you,
actually
dude,
do need
I'm
them.
not-
I thought I had some. I don't have any.
Flatline here.
Oh no, wait, I'm lying. I do. I have 3. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Anyone passes through here? You know. Everything okay?
Well, that was only 2 kids out of that squad. Oh, there.
No,
we
that
go.
was the whole
Okay.
squad. The one I killed had a knockdown shield.
No, because it was still 6 squads, but he just now died.
Oh, okay.
There's a bunch of throwables in here.
We're still in zone, boys. Yeah, let me grab
I
some.
need
There's
some
3
throwables.
grenades,
Yeah.
3 arc stars, and 2 Bernie sticks. I think.
I took Bernie sticks.
I got some arcs.
If you need a Bernie stick, I'll trade you 1 Bernie stick for 1 arc. I don't even want
No.
it. I'm just saying if you like them.
There's still arcs down there if you need some.
Okay.
I'm fine with arcs.
Well, you need a Bernie stick too?
Okay, sure. I'll chuck us one and I'll drop you a... How about I drop you this?
Well, I'll just talk. Oh, well, thanks. Yeah,
I'll trade you
I
that.
did need some shields.
Yeah, I only got
Thanks.
2 little ones.
Is that somebody
I
outside?
think they're.
There are
bit of a
5 squads
distance
left.
away.
Oh, we got the circle again!
Oh, there's a care
There's some-
package.
Burn some of them.
I have to keep on sitting in the stink, boy. in
Care
the
package
sink,
on the roof
boys.
over there.
We have to stay in the sinks. No, we have to
Sink.
stay in the sink.
Sit in the
The
sink
sink is
for
good
luck.
luck.
I need shields,
Exactly.
bro.
I bet this storm might burn some of them to death.
Burn, mother. No,
Can't
what?
get out of my
No, it's
sink.
my sink.
Get out of my sink!
My sink.
Saucy.
I bet it's hard for a grenade to hurt you in there too, unless it like lands just right in front of you. That'd be almost impossible too.
I fenced the whole house.
Nice
All the
security
doors are fenced.
system.
Exactly.
So we're up. We got 21 points. This is nice. Do
I'm at 36
Very
because I got a
nice.
kill.
yeah, I got
And
1
an
assist.
Let's see if the storm reaps a harvest of points.
Be aware of the new kill leader.
Took out 1 squad.
Bro, this dude has 8 kills and we're sitting in here with 1 kill.
Huh. Who has 8 kills? You see somebody on
2
the
people
banner?
just died by storm, yeah. The kill leader now has 8 kills. But then 2 people just died by the storm. I'm still in zone.
Oh, that is awesome.
No, but we
Safety
won't be able to
toilet.
get down here. We won't be able to get down here though. We
Yeah,
have to
but-
like stay
but-
downstairs.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. How are there 3 other squads not fighting each other in this tiny circle?
I hear them.
I hear them around us.
I'm gonna stay
Yeah,
upstairs
until we have to move.
It starts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I hear people sliding.
Ring's not too far. 45 left.
Oh, bro.
Wasn't me, bro. Boys, we're gonna have to start moving
Yeah.
downstairs soon.
10 seconds. The ring's close.
Not quite yet, though.
Why are you running outside?
Yeah, we gotta
'Cause
go
I
that
need-
way.
there's a guy's body down here that has some good
Alright,
shields and stuff.
we
if
gotta go.
anyone needs it down
I
here.
don't got time for that shit. I do need. Oh, I hear them.
We can sit right.
They're right over there, I think.
Yeah, dudes. If you get inside, that storm is going to fuck them up. I
Come
think.
over
I
to
don't
me,
know.
guys. Guys, over here.
What are you talking about, dude? Why are you out in the
I
open?
don't know if you're gonna be safe in there.
Cause at least we got some cover. The cars, no one can get
We
up this
had-
way over here.
We had
No one
cover
can
in
get
the
up over
building.
here. We have the
Okay.
high ground.
That's
You just
true,
have to
you're-
watch out
okay.
for those guys over
Okay.
there.
How are there
Down
still
there.
3 other squads? I don't fucking get it.
White armor, bro. I just almost killed him.
I'm burning the shit out of them.
Oh yeah.
There goes his white
Oh,
armor.
yeah.
I broke 2 shields. One's knocked,
Nice job.
and he's dead from the fire.
You popped him. Hell yeah, good job.
That was awesome.
Oh shit,
Okay.
my headset might run down, but I'm here.
Wait, where are the other squads then?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We should get in that fucking building
I,
and
there's not
the
much
storm
building
burn.
left in there. I don't know.
Wait 1 second.
yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
I think they're underneath us. Down there, maybe.
Oh, I bet you're right. I bet you're right.
Okay, let's go back to our point up here. Quick,
Okay.
because we're in the zone.
Yeah, I guess you're right. This is probably the best spot.
I see
It
him.
has to be. Oh yeah.
He's
Okay.
in there.
Yep. Yep. Want to throw a thermite? Targeting? Oh, he's fucked.
Someone jumped in there. They're
Where is this fool? Where's he at? Where's he at?
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Last I looked, there was 4 squads left. And then the one dude died. I guess he was his own squad, but then that still should have left 3 squads
Oh,
left.
Yeah, yeah, and then somebody else died. Yeah. 2 in the bag, ready to go. We be fast and they be slow.
Bro, that last one I just killed, I shot him once, I missed my second shot, and I stood there and he jumped out of the circle and killed himself out of his own.
Very nice. Very nice.
I said, bitch.
It was amazing.
That was totally sweet.
Oh, 176 XP, no? Well, reputation.
Oh, yeah, that's, man. I think this is the closest I've ever been to actually advancing to gold 3.
Yep.
Hold on just a sec.
Plus, I'm up another battle pass level, but I'm already tier 110, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, what am I here? I'm 103.
Yeah.
I got a P, I'll be
Okay.
BRB.
Yep. Ooh. You're kidding me. I need 15... Wait. I need 5 more crafting material.
I wish I could share some crafting material.
I know. I'm gonna buy 1 Apex pack. There we go. If this doesn't give me crafting material... Ooh, I'm gonna be a bit annoyed.
What legendary you get?
Yes, crafting material. No, I'm just saying so I can have...
Wait, what
it.
legendary are you gonna buy?
Like, I don't know which one I want
Are
to
you
get.
just...
Know what I mean?
If you're not selling a legendary, I would've... Although I guess you're not gonna...
Like, I like the Pioneer for the Kraber, but I haven't found the Kraber in, like, a week. I could get the charge rifle legendary.
How often do you use the charge rifle?
Not very. I have a legendary for literally every other gun. Wait, except for the Mozambique. And the RE45. But I have Blue Fade, which is a special one that no one else can get, so...
Drink again.
Oh yeah, that was totally sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare to get a circle that.
Oh
perfect.
shit!
That kid that
Yeah.
walked up the stairs just got totally pooped on. That was like, Ozzy was burning him. I think me and Joe were both shooting him. I don't know. It was ugly.
I was shooting
Yeah.
at him.
It was a
I was gonna
total
say,
beatdown.
if you wanna,
Hit him.
you go first.
So I was shooting at him. I don't know if I was hitting him.
I was like point blank dumping the full auto prowler into him. Dude, that Ozzy, that outfit's awesome.
That's his
Yeah, I know,
sexy
it's
elf.
so good, isn't it?
Oh, controller batteries are low.
When you elf yourself
right back.
too hard.
Go elf yourself, bro.
No, when elf yourself. So.
I don't think so. That's pretty funny though.
Oh,
You sit on a throne of lies.
you scumbag.
No, that's harsh. That'd be a harsh. What?
What?
Nothing?
What? Huh? I was gonna say, Zero, if you wanted to, like, rank up fast with a battle pass, the best way to do is do the Polar Express thing, because I was getting like 80,000 XP and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we played several games of that last night.
Yeah, did you get high
No.
levels?
What do you mean by that?
Like, how many levels did you level up?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't. I do pursue the battle pass, but I don't pay enough attention to it to like
Yeah.
really notice. But I've done a lot of the weekly challenges though.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a freaking open 10 supply bins and fuel depot one on my week 10. That's an easy.
Yeah, I was just looking. I gotta do 3
Very
more
easy.
supply bins and Skyhook. And then that'll go to another diamond, and I'll probably have to do some other shit.
Nice.
Ooh, damn.
Also, 110 is the max level. on
No.
Battle Pass?
Oh, yes.
That's all
on
it's
Battle Pass,
scrolling.
yes. Yeah. Why does it take so long to just find a ranked game?
Yeah, dude.
This is why I hate ranked.
That's kind of a cool skin, Aussie. Is that a battle pass thing, or is that one from the store?
Which one?
The one you're wearing?
Oh, that's from last Halloween. That's from Halloween.
That's pretty cool. It's like a
Vampire.
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 I just poured soda down my face like a child.
Wait, why did it pick Wraith when I choose Bangalore?
Maybe because you were switching back and forth rapidly.
But I already chose Bangalore, and then I was just switching, like, looking, like, just pushing my left stick over them.
Yeah, I bet you thought you did that.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Congratulations, you screwed yourself.
Yeah, wait a minute. Why is this dude got 3? Oh, never mind. I'm on Twitch and I'm like, wait a minute, this dude's got 3 streams going? What the f? But no, he's just got the popular videos. He's the top 3. Which, lucky
I'm
for
sad
him.
we weren't champion. Where are we going?
Yeah, he's very popular.
Who's
I
popular?
was
Yeah, I
in
don't
Spanish,
know.
dude.
I don't know.
Some Spanish, dude.
Saw a Spanish guy doing the Bartman.
The Bartman? The Bartman.
That's out of
It's
a
called the
Lonely
Aardvark.
Island song.
Uncultured swine. That's where I'm going. Don't follow me, otherwise I tear
I'm
out
following you,
your
bro.
heart.
I'm following you.
I'll just tear out your flesh.
I'm going to all the other places, so you better stay in that cart.
Really? Let's go trash. Ooh.
Must go faster.
Must die.
If I have to. Yo, I just bought this controller, and it's like already like got like stick drift.
No shit. What? Like a what brand
Xbox
controller? is it?
controller.
What? You better take that
Yeah,
shit
I'm gonna
back.
have to.
Be like,
Not too fast. I gotta release the Raptors. I don't know what he says. I was actually talking to Kim about that not that long ago. That like the Newman thing from Jurassic Park was like, don't try that. I hear footsteps.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where he appears on the computer, it's like,
Yeah. Don't do that. You gotta be a spit dinosaur's gotta eat me or whatever he says.
Thesaurus.
It's a spit dinosaur.
Yeah,
Doodlesaurus.
spit dinosaurs. Yeah, Jurassic Park's a
Yeah,
classic.
man.
Train's here.
Ooh.
Man, I hear
I
somebody.
thought
think.
so too earlier and I couldn't find them.
Maybe not. Maybe that's Ozzy. I think that's him. No, the
They're
train
like
is
shotguns.
unlooted.
Oh
Train is
shit.
unlooted.
Okay.
Everyone
Okay,
get on train quick.
I'm grabbing some.
Shit. Where's the purple shits? Where's my purple armor at? I'm angry.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's somebody. Either there's somebody around me or my legs are super loud.
Come toward
Yeah.
the train, brah.
I'm gonna gold G7 scout. Exactly.
Nah, that's some bitch ass shit.
There's many things on the train. Or a few things, anyway.
Are we staying on the train? There's all the.
No.
there-
There's just like white armor and stuff mainly. There might have been a Phoenix kit or something.
Yes, there is. What do I drop for it? Drop that for it.
Oh, dude on the train track. Two dudes on
Okay.
the train track.
Which way? Ping, ping, ping,
Shit.
ping.
I'm a dead man. God damn it. Fast guy with a shotgun. Fast guy. Or no, it's a bang with a shotgun right on my box.
Oh, no, leave me alone. You didn't see me. Why are you shooting me? You don't see me. I'm a figment of your imagination.
I missed my entire fucking clip.
Oh, you being shot in the back now, bitch? Sucks to be you. Oh, they're behind me. Oh, you're behind me.
Oh, it's a
Nah, I
Doge
think it was a
squad.
robot just
Doge
pulled some
squad.
slick robot move.
Oh, just the third guy.
Oh, calm
Okay.
down.
Yeah, we
Run
got.
away, you stupid
I didn't even
dumbass
hear them
fucker.
until they were like right up on me, dude. Oh yeah, go Aussie. Go Aussie.
He took your purple armor, that bitch.
Yeah.
Do your magic.
Yeah. Yeah, do whatever you. Oh yeah, Phoenix time. Oh, good shooting, good shooting. That was.
He seriously
had, like,
wasted his
20
bullet
health.
on me. The Bangalore
But they're like,
wasted
yo,
a
that's that
bullet.
armored Ozzy. We gotta hit him with everything we got, bro. Calling the,
I did a lot of damage.
calling
on
the
him.
bombardment.
Oh. I probably just got 1 or 2 left in me. I gotta be on call for work tomorrow. I'll probably be working tomorrow, but
Well, that's cool.
That was my last game.
Are you done?
Entire day.
all right.
I want to go
Have a
to
good
bed.
All right,
morning.
Ozzy, thank you for the games, buddy. Adios.
You too, guys. Thank you for the game.
Eat a large breakfast.
Yeah,
and you go
man.
to sleep
Yep. Yeah.
upside down.
Of course, I mean, no other way to do it.
Oh, take it off.
No other way to do it.
Right. Put on my gravity boots after I ate 5 eggs.
Let's see. Grim is not on.
Yeah, what's up with that shit? See
I
a
don't know.
worker out partying or something.
I don't know. Should be on. Oh, it says he was on a minute ago, so he was on.
Oh, what the fuck?
Like, what are the odds he gets off right before Ozzy does?
I can't believe he didn't join the party or anything.
Nah, I guess he saw we had 3. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. He might have been talking to his randos.
Probably not. I don't think he likes his randos.
No, nah, I don't usually either. Except you guys. I mean, you're not randos anymore.
Well, everybody's.
Once upon a time.
Yeah,
we were
everybody's
all
got to start as a
randos.
rando.
Well, I was a rando then, yeah. I'll burp.
Burbies.
He's gonna drink.
I don't know where he pinged. I don't see the ping. Where's the ping? I don't see it. Alright, he
back.
pinged somewhere, I guess the same place or 2 different places, and I didn't see the first 2 pings. I just couldn't see them. So now I feel bad.
Oh, that's
So
weird.
he pinged here, so I went here, but like I couldn't tell where he wanted to go.
Well, you know.
Fuck it, he's just a rando.
Here's some armor.
I'm grabbing some light ammo if you need it. I can share it. I'm running double heavy currently, so.
Oh, I can use it. I've just got a scout. I don't need too much of it. Yeah, you need a.
Oh yeah, I did dibs and armor that you pinged. Let me go get that.
There's some heavy where I'm
Okay.
standing, Joe.
I'm coming to you. Ooh, here's an armor. I hear someone zipping. Here, take this light ammo.
Okay. Oh, you know, I just threw down my light. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. Thank you. Threw down my heavy for another heavy. Where did our
He's right
teammate
down.
go?
Yeah.
There he is. Okay. Thought I was the robot. Gibraltar.
Let's go over to this construction site. Yeah, I definitely heard zip lines.
People zipping up.
Up they're zipping across
Right
now.
above us. I hear them on the floor above us too, I think. Thought I did. Oh, somebody just dropped down?
Okay.
How am I missing all that? Oh my god. Oh shit, oh shit!
Yeah. Motherfucker.
See what? Oh, damn. Yeah, we were in a bad spot.
Yeah, that was no good. You don't want these problems, dog. You don't want these problems, dog. You don't want these problems, dog. I think that's what he's saying. I don't know. Mercules.
that?
Mercules, Mercules, Mercules. It's always just your Mercules.
I'll let Mercules 24. Yeah, I was looking at some lyrics the other day to Tech Nine song that I thought I heard the lyrics to pretty well, but like there were a bunch of them in there I was mishearing. Like,
Yeah, Tech Nine is very quick.
yeah, he is quick. Yeah, and it was that Worldwide Chopper song, so there's a bunch of people on it, and some of them are rapping too fast.
And then he has songs where he's just
And
like,
some of it's in other languages.
Today's.
Yeah. I was showing Grim the other night. There's this, you've heard of Chris Glico,
Yes.
right? There's an album he's got called Son of Sam. You should look up the album cover to it. It's pretty fucking funny.
Okay. I will have to check it out. You're a jump master. I gave it up to you. Chris
Alright, I guess we won't train
Glico.
guard.
Yeah, I'm just I don't really pay attention usually to like who's. I just like really put on like the Mercules like radio and Spotify, and then like whatever comes on. But I don't know, I forget what song it was, but there was a song that came on that I liked, and it caused me to like look up who was on it, and he was the guest artist, so that's why I know his name.
Yeah, same. Well, one of his songs off that album came up on Amazon Music on some station I was listening to, and the same shit. I'd heard him collaborate on somebody's song once upon a time, but oh shit, I fell down. Okay.
All right, here, if you can come to
Bad
under me,
times.
probably can't. Oh, I just fell. Never mind. Fuck. I was gonna drop my blue shield, and then pick up the other blue shield.
Oh shit. Where is that? Where is? Oh, that's our dude. Okay.
Oh, there's people.
All right. I hear somebody around me up top as well.
Somebody's right here too.
What the fuck is this kid? I'm coming to you, Joe. I'm getting there first.
Broke the shield. Ah, me, man. Nice.
I'm gonna put this fool out.
Yeah,
real
man.
quick. Oh no, they took the fucking. Oh, that's you. Okay, good deal. I thought that was the enemy rezzing somebody up. Like, no, no.
Nice, and I landed right on my box.
Yeah, yeah.
Alright, so like refilled my shield? That's weird.
Oh, yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, I don't think it normally does that.
I don't know how that works. Ooh, I got a gold barrel stabilizer.
Oh shit. Oh shit, I'm crypto. Okay.
Train's coming in. It's unlooted.
Ooh, okay. Coming. Let's go, fast man.
Purple armor where I'm standing.
Alright. I'm gonna loot these other train bins real quick.
Dude, you better get this purple
Alright.
armor, bruh.
Oh shit, I thought teammate had purple armor. Okay. Yeah, good call. Good call.
Maybe there's another one. They're still on up and shit. I'm running off
Okay,
the
yeah,
back
I'm
of
off.
the train. Oh shit, maybe that bin has an armor. Oh fuck, I'm not the robot. Damn it.
Oh,
Whatever.
it's Archer who doesn't have it.
You want a blue heavy?
Yeah. Thank you.
Did you get
Yeah,
a
I grabbed the
Phoenix
Phoenix kit off of that thingy.
I might give this kid one of mine. I got two. He's running somewhere. He's running wide.
You can always get what you need when you need it and save on the items you use the most, especially during baking season. ShopRite, helping you get it together together. Hungry yet? Satisfy your wing cravings with an order of soft and tossed hot wings and an ice-cold refreshing Coke from 7-Eleven. And when you buy 5 chicken wings with any 20-ounce Coke using the 7-Eleven app, you get 507 rewards.
I got a gold flat line off that train. I'm ready to kill.
Nice.
Oh, his circle's coming in
shit.
quick. I don't
Oh
know.
no,
Yeah,
no. Yeah, I guess we're already started to run. Shit.
I mean, I don't know which one was quicker. I mean, it's probably equal. Oh no, I hit a fucking gas trap.
That's might be people up here.
Oh shit, there are. I'm just marking that so we'll know there are people
Okay.
here. Come on, kid.
Alright,
Join
guns
your
out for the
team.
fun house.
Join your fucking team.
Alright, I'm gonna throw my drone to get some
Yeah.
eyeballs.
Okay, he's zipping. He's zipping. Oh, shit. Oh, that's your drone. Okay. Did it flash some
No.
kids on the lower floor
Nah,
of this
flash
building?
the door.
You want to just join
Yeah.
him? Because he's apparently not coming over here. Do you still have a Phoenix kit? If so, I need that med kit.
Yeah, no, you can take it. Yeah, yeah, everything's good. I was confused. I'm like, I already
Dude,
took that
don't
med kit.
don't engage him. We're far away.
Yeah, no,
I'm ready
there's
for
nobody.
him.
I didn't see
That's-
anybody.
Okay. I guess those guys are running away. I don't know where that med kit is.
It's on the roof.
Don't matter.
Oh, he's locked up? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'll sleep in there with him.
Thanks.
Alright, so he's running away.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna try to catch up to him.
zip over. There's a shield battery.
Yeah, I
too,
was
right
trying
near
to
that.
jump and get to it, but it didn't work. Alright, I got it.
This kid's rushing. Oh, he's hitting this. Oh, there's dudes in this building,
Okay.
Joe.
I'm coming. Oh, they're in the yard right here?
Okay.
Oh, and they're in the building. Ah, they're on the rooftop too.
I got one and I hurt the other pretty bad. Come on, Amazing Archer. You better fucking earn your keep. You're not earning your keep, you bitch.
He's right here looting. He's trying to
Earn
punch
your
me.
keep. I gotta get away. I've got like 20 Oh my god. Oh, fuck.
That's an amazing archer. You can't stay with us anymore. You're not carrying your own weight.
No. You've been sent
Back to the orphanage.
away. Back to the orphanage. That's hilarious. Oh man. Alright, I got one more.
Okay, okay. Yeah, man. Gonna do one more. Zero's gonna do one more.
When you're done, can you come in and help me? Let chips out and dry them off. Come see me when you're done again.
Okay. Alright, I'm gonna ready up and I'll be right back.
Alright.
So, Chibs, you didn't let him. All right, here we go. Oh wait, I just realized. Okay. Alright, where do you want to go? Zero to hero. Where do you...
Whatever you're feeling.
Wherever I'm
Whatever
feeling.
you're feeling.
Wherever I'm feeling. I'm feeling some craziness. To the sorting factory. Just...
Feel it, don't spill it.
I'm gonna spill it too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna feel it, I'm gonna spill it, I'm gonna rip it, I'm gonna dip it.
Oh, dude. Two of the drivers I've driven with on UPS there have, like, you know, dipped tobacco and, like, they both spit out their window or whatever. But, like, this third guy I was driving with the past couple of days told me that some of them will fucking spit in the cab.
Oh my
fucking
god,
thing, like, on the
that's so
floor.
gross.
I'm like, oh, dude, that's gross. Yeah, I was like, damn.
That is like unbelievably gross. That shit's like
I know,
tar.
dude. I was like, what do you do? Like, when do they clean it? Like,
I feel like the only thing you can do is like
it was like, bleh.
punch them all in their face. I mean, that's what I'll do.
Yeah. I don't know if he means they keep the door on that side open and like spit out the door and some of it gets on the floor or what, but it's gross either way.
Yeah. You got a gun and whatnot?
Yeah. Which kind do I want to?
No, I was asking if you had a gun and whatnot.
Yeah, I do. I hear a cargo drone.
There's one over here flying away from us.
Don't know where it was. Oh yeah. Okay.
I popped it. It's on that ledge. You saw where it fell, right?
I did.
Oh, okay. It's right over here.
Yeah, go for it if you see something you need.
Well, you shot it down. This is you, right?
I don't need the stock. There's two stocks.
60 seconds left. Shotgun bolt here. Level 3. Shotgun bolt here. Level 2. 45 seconds. Rings close. Careful. They could be watching.
Damn, it's a field stage, Slinky. Just like do some crazy moves to get like super far ahead of us. Some crazy moves to get like super far ahead of us. He like grappled up and like then caught like the zip line.
Oh.
Pulling some dumb robot moves.
G7 scout here.
Yeah. Get that
Oh,
shit out of
flatline.
here.
I've got a flatman here.
If you're into the flatline.
I want to try the Spitfire this match. I am into the flatline though.
You know, I'm gonna take the flatline. Oh wait, I had extended
Yeah.
energy mag. Oh well, I'm committed to it.
Stopping hearts.
Yeah.
You don't
No,
have a
I
sniper,
do
do you?
not. 301 and flatline.
I saw a purple sniper stock.
I'm gonna check this tank real quick for another site, and then I'll be up. No, no sight. I'm coming.
Staged Slinky 069. Sure, if that's one of those randomly generated names, that's a weird one.
Oh, he's got a vault key. Okay.
What's the deal with kids
Oh
that use those
shit!
anyways?
There's
Is
people
that, like,
fighting
just,
outside here.
Like, have they made that mandatory where if you get like a free pass, you have to use a random name, or are these kids like
They just never.
unable to come up with
Probably.
a name?
They just never. Or it's like a secondary account, and they don't really care about the name.
Yeah, right, and it's just a random,
Oh.
I mean, a quick. Oh shit,
Yep.
are you getting
Their
shot?
charger. Yeah,
a
no,
million
I'm trying to
miles
get
away,
to
dude.
this.
I'm trying to get to
I'm coming to
Nancy.
you. I'm coming around the way you guys went in.
Okay.
I was gonna go around and meet you through the other side of the thing. They were far. They were sniping
Oh
me.
yeah, yeah. Why can't I see you? There you are. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna go.
okay.
Oh shit! I'm not gonna be able to get stuff in the
Yeah.
vault because of the fucking.
Oh shit. Oh, did that kid have
Yeah.
a vault key? Well, let's look in it because I mean it's just the first
Yeah,
circle.
true that. True that. True that.
Oh yeah, there's that good shit. Yep, in here. There's not all that good shit.
Yeah, I gotta.
Okay.
Yeah, I got
Did
a
you get some blue
armor.
armor?
So I'm good.
Oh yeah.
Good enough.
You know what? How about you take this purple armor? Because I wouldn't even know the
No.
vault was there
Nope.
to look in if you hadn't said that shit. Okay,
Nope.
you can have it if you want it. For 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 1.
You don't know how to count. Now I got 8 syringes.
I'll give you a med kit. I got 2. And I got a shield. Extra
Oh, I
shield
got 2
battery.
shield betters. I'm actually good on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got my own med kit, so.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh.
I'm gonna get in cover and throw out my drone to give us some eyeballs.
Adding an extra pair of eyes.
I don't see anybody.
Is that our teammate? Yeah, okay. I heard somebody walking around me and it was him. Man, how are these
Yeah, I don't
fuckers?
see anybody at all. Oh, you know what? There's 0 squads around us within drone range. So that's why I don't see them. Guess I should have checked the banners first.
Can you, like, there's a distance limit on
Yeah.
the drone, right?
Your name is Thomas. Time to earn my MBA. I know it's my next step for a promotion and a raise, but I need something fast and convenient. Well, I just got my MBA.
Quit being a dumbass, Slinky.
Yeah, he's just like shooting his grapple straight up in the air. Oh, he's trying to get my drone?
That sounds
Trying to grapple my drone, I guess.
Apply today at Eastern University.
Oh,
January start
I wonder if he
I
can.
think he can.
/MBA.
Can you bring it within his range?
Yeah, I'm
See if
dropping
he
it down
can-
now.
I just want to see it happen if he can. Oh, that's dope. That's fucking awesome, dude. Huh, that was cool. Wonder, I'm sure that could come in handy in some way.
Yeah, we could work on our slingshotting.
Oh, I wonder if he grabs it and then you move it. Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, look how fucking far he went. That's pretty
Yeah,
far.
all the way over.
That's cool as
That's
shit.
pretty sweet.
Great minds think alike. Dude, yeah, he went really high.
Let's go
So
this
high right now. Oh yeah, fighting going on. You want to engage?
Yeah, let me see if I see anybody. I don't.
Yeah, it's over to the northwest.
And I'm coming. Oh, my drone's picking up somebody. Somebody right there.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, watch out for your own thingy.
Thanks. Other side of this. Oh, that was 2 squads.
I hope they're getting somebody up.
Oh, I got no long range shit.
They got him up. Oh, I just knocked. I guess whoever just got up.
Nice. Good job. Good
Talk
job.
about.
I killed the one you knocked. Ooh, they kick you out.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit one of these boxes real quick.
Oh, shit. Where did that fire come from? I heard it. Oh, over here, guys. Over here. Oh, I need ammo. Fudge.
What kind of ammo? Okay, there's some.
Heavy.
I can drop some, but there's boxes up here too.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I'm right behind you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, get up here, my dude. Oh, we gotta run. Run.
Oh, shit.
Wall. Dude's over there. Oh, shit. Charge rifle.
Oh, what? Why? Oh, he's down in the storm. Come on, bro. Come on. Fuck!
Man, I need a sight.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
He died to the storm because he was like dicking around or some shit. I don't know.
Oh, our fucking
Yeah.
dumb teammate did. Damn. Shouldn't have been so dumb. Dicking around
Ain't
in
that
the
the
storm.
fucking truth? Alright, now he's like pinging. I don't know.
Yeah, what are we supposed to fucking do here? I mean, give me a break.
Shit, yeah, I don't have any long range. Sorry. I got a 1x sight.
I don't either. You want to run behind this rock and then try to get away?
Yeah.
Shit, he's burning me. Hold
Okay.
up. Oh,
Oh,
dude's on
shit,
me.
shit, I'm
Two
coming.
dudes on me.
Yeah, I got hit with an arc star.
I heard one of
I
them.
slid right into an arc star.
We would have been fine if our teammate hadn't been retarded.
I thought he was fighting, and then like I see he's down, so I'm like, oh, let me go get him, and like he's crawling to like, come out of the storm. But like, I guess I could have went in the storm to try to get him, but I didn't have a whole lot of heals.
He should have been frosted.
He definitely should have been frosted. Yo, are you kidding me? I just let you out like 5 seconds ago, and you're gonna try to eat the fucking pillow, like right in front of me.
All right, man. I gotta get off here for not. I'm probably out
Okay.
tomorrow.
Sounds good. I appreciate the games.
The games. Double dub W.
Yeah.
Double
You got the
dubs.
double dubs. The dubs.
And one rank
Yeah.
dub.
And that counts for more than just that
Alright.
single dub. All the dubs.
Yeah. All the dubs. Yeah, that got one of my weekly shits done too. Getting the rank
Okay,
win.
good.
Cool.
Yeah, Ram's good for that
All right.
stuff.
Peace
so.
out. Yeah, he's a good player.
Alright, I will. Yeah.
All right. See you.
See you soon, buddy. Peace out,
peace
Cub
out.
Scout. Alright. So now it's just me. Everybody's left me. Everybody's left me. Alright, what is Free Play Friday? Let's... Maybe we switch up games here. Let's see. Play some of that Moonlighter. Something that's got a story, or something that we make our own story. Check out the store. Let's see what the store's got to offer. OP, come on. Come here, Pop. What are you getting into? Are you getting into some trouble? Why are you doing that stuff? Why are you doing that stuff, puppy? What is this about? Really, there's not a trailer for that? About fighting a deadly outbreak in Scooter Row Town. The town is dying. Doesn't sound super interesting. You know what I mean? So. Get out of the trash can. Subnautica seemed interesting. Let's start downloading this. This is definitely something I want to play. Alright, and now let's take a look at the game's A to Z. Finally chewing stuff you're allowed to chew. This looks like it could be interesting. It's probably raising marketing thousands of world, but as people have been left isolated and stranded from the collapse hundreds of years later, separation has turned siblings into diverging species. Independent factions who are setting out to rebuild the world as they see fit. Hard way out. Face down, ate some cowards. Strategy from the front line. Starpoint Gemini Warlords combines third-person capital spaceship combat with 4X strategy and RPG gameplay elements. Build mighty war fleets and send them into battle. Lead them into combat yourself and become a warlord. And I think I remember seeing a not a demo, but like a trailer for this. You're like riding like some weird thing. You go with like a couple units in front of you. So you're there and you can actually shoot, but you also command them to go in and stuff.
Home. A place in the world. A bright future. Sounds like a different life today.
What?
They left us here to die. A fate I will not easily accept.
The writing's pretty bad. Just listen to this guy talk in this trailer.
I don't know what awaits us in this place. We need a new home. A new life. Just one chance to repent for our father's sins. We will build our cities and our ships again. But will the people of Gemini think we deserve another chance?
I mean, it looks like it could be pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I know what the strategy part is. It doesn't really show me the gameplay. It just seems like it's got potential. Also, let's see what Northgard is. It's got an interesting art style. Why does it not have a trailer? Okay. That looks like it's some sort of RTS type game. This is a squad-based real-time strategy with strong focus on tactics, inspired by medieval European history, and puts 4 different nations in their conflicts. I mean, I could also just start doodling on the. Gotta work on my digital art skills anyway. Fluffy clutches the service world. Become as chief lieutenant. The dungeon lord has found a way to direct this campaign of conquest from the confines in the ground lair. Now the forces of evil to support her. Players will have to use every trick in the book to best those do-gooders of the overworld once and for all. So we are the dungeon? And I never really played the Batman games. Could try that. No idea what kind of game that is. No idea. Like Demon's Tilt. What is this? Pinball. Okay, nope. No pinball for me, please. I'm gonna way down. I'm gonna way down. I'm gonna way down. Life is Strange can at least like the first one. I don't know if she's really digging the second, but she's playing it. My friend what? It's a bloody banana? Minstrel to obliterate anyone in his path at the behest of the sentient banana. Strategic use of split aiming, slow motion, and the old stylish window breach. One sectional action sequence after another, and the explosive battle through the violent underworld. Unleash a torrent of destruction with an incredible level of control over both your weapons and your body. Twist and turn through the air while aiming with both hands at priority threats. A lineup perfect ricochet to drop an unsuspecting gangster from behind. Break up the hack and run the gun. Do it that. It's just like a thrilling motorcycle chase or slow it all down. Take a moment to think. So, what? Again, no trailer. Oh, it's one of these 2D things. Okay. No, I didn't want to go all the way back. Dag nabbit. Diggity dag nabbits. I guess let me deals with gold. Risk of rain, close to the sun. Guess I shouldn't. Oh, try for free. Okay, here we go. Where was I? Paramedic the board game. Cool. Land of Maui. I like the first Tomb Raider. I guess I could play that. Ninjago! Dark fantasy of interest in the first landscape, playing expeditions on the ground. Let's see what this is. Hopefully the trailer has some gameplay in it.
Since the Vambrace entered my possession, I have been plagued by unsettling dreams of a ghostly blade cutting me down.
I don't know. Seems like it could be interesting. I don't know how interesting it would be to stream it, to have anybody watch it, but... Why is it a simulator? What was the second one called? Are they all here? Alright, so I think it's Tomb Raider, Rise of Tomb Raider. And then the one with the sun setting behind her. It's already installed. Yeah, okay. So that is the first one I played. The other one's already installed, so I might as well give it a go, at least until Subnautica is downloaded. Ice on my neck, ice on my neck, ice on my neck, there's ice on my neck, ice on my neck, ice on my neck, ice on my neck, ice on my neck. Let me go check on Opie, see what he's doing. Sure he's not like chilling a hole in the couch. there's a thief when I first got up. I wonder if Subnautica's ready to. Maybe I did play this. Yeah, I must have. 9% complete.
What makes someone reach beyond the boundaries of human experience to face the unknown? As children, we question the world around us. We learn, we accept, and gradually we lose our capacity for wonder. But some do not. The explorers, the seekers of truth. It is these pioneers who define the future of mankind.
They're done. No amount of money's gonna get them through those mountains.
The lost city's up there, somewhere.
That's gonna be a hell of a climb.
I'm not turning back.
I know.
You should stay here with them.
Not a chance.
You know what? I kind of do remember this actually.
You're almost there.
At least this part, this climb.
Take my hand.
Thanks. Look at that.
It's amazing. But the snow coming off those peaks is a bad sign.
The trail leads up the mountain. We'll have a good view of the valley beyond from the summit.
All right. Let's take it easy here.
That's crazy. Why would you ever want to be...
Just need to keep moving.
Like, if that was like a 10-foot drop, I'd be nervous walking on something this narrow.
I know, but I have a good feeling about this. Oh, shit!
You okay?
Lost my footing.
Nah, a piece of the mountain disappeared. You can lose your footing. Oh, you're beast mode, Lara.
I need to jump across.
Yeah. Okay. Now grab my hand.
That's crazy.
Gotcha.
It's insane.
Shit, Lara. You're gonna give me a
Try to
heart
make
attack.
that jump.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Come on.
I guess that's why I'm not Lara Croft, you know?
Looks like we gotta go through. Not bad. If the weather turns, we can hold up in this cave. Do you really think we'll find this lost city?
I know this is a long shot, but that old tracker said he saw ruins up in these mountains.
Well, I guess if I was gonna hide a lost city, this might be the kind of godforsaken place I'd do it.
I just hope Trinity hasn't beaten us to it.
Look at that. That is
We have a
beautiful.
couple hours at most.
Should be enough time. We're almost to the top.
These Sour Patch
What do you
candy
think?
cans are delicious.
We're close to something, Jonah. I can feel it. Just this last stretch to the top.
All right. Let's see what's up there.
Sorry, Jordan, I'll never love you.
Feels pretty solid, but keep close to the wall.
Okay. Looks like we climb from here.
Keep your eyes open for falling ice.
Right. You ready?
Let's do it. There's lots of loose ice up here.
Let's take it slow and steady. Just stay with me.
Look out!
Oh, shit!
That was close.
Beast mode.
Oh, no. No. Jonah, hold on!
Shit! I'm going to dig in. Can you make it across?
I can make it!
That's. Why would you try that?
Whoa! Holy shit! I don't think I can make that jump.
Stay there! I'll anchor a line for you at the top.
All right, I'll give you some slack. Almost there, Laura. You got it.
That's insane. Like, how fit you'd have to be to make that fucking jump.
Jonah! We made it! I see the ruins! Oh god.
Here comes a quick time event. Maybe not.
I got you. Laura, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull you back up. Oh, fuck!
There! Over there! Quick! Swing me to the other side!
Okay, here goes. Come on, Laura. Laura, I can't hold
Bam! Like, this does not look like fun. I'm not a mountain climber. All that and I didn't make it. And Lara Croft is dead.
It is the greatest cruelty of life that we're all too swiftly taken from it. We age, we decay, we die. But what do we leave behind? Bones? Dust? What of the soul? Does it endure beyond our earthly existence? I believe it does. A truth lies at the heart of many myths and stories. A truth not of science, but something more profound.
I'm just like really mucking up these
to unlocking everlasting life.
kind of games.
I may have found the next piece to the puzzle, but I'm not alone in this search. They're following me, watching my every step. I know them by name now. Trinity. An ancient, violent sect with designs on controlling the future of humanity. I must proceed carefully for the sake of my family. If anything were to ever happen to Lara or Anna, I could never forgive myself.
Somebody's in the apartment. Absolutely. There's no way there's not.
It's me. Anna! Oh God, I'm so sorry. What are you doing here?
I saw the gutter press was attacking you again. I thought you could use some company.
No lies. Were you followed?
Followed? Of course not. What's going on?
I think I found the tomb.
Oh, you can't be serious.
The myth of the prophet is real. Dad was right.
Lara, your father was unwell.
No, he was close to a great discovery, tangible evidence of the immortal soul.
I loved Richard. I would have married him if he'd asked. But he was a broken man. I don't want to see you end up like him.
Anna, he was right. It was everyone else who was wrong. The tomb's in Syria.
Syria? Oh God, Laura, no. This is madness. Get your life sorted. Go home to the manor.
You know I can't go back there.
But this obsession ruined your father.
I saw something. Something I can't explain. Now I understand what Dad was going through.
It's all fairy tales. Nonsense. Don't go down this road. You know where it leads.
It's the only thing that makes sense to me now. I'm going to find the Prophet's tomb.
I wanna find the Prophet's tomb, dude.
Hey, we're heading into a war zone now. We better be sure about this.
We're close. There should be an oasis in the canyon just ahead.
You're wasting your time. There's nothing out here.
Just keep driving, please.
It's your money.
Something isn't right.
Oh, that's just local militia.
You told someone, didn't you?
They paid better than you. Shit! They weren't supposed to shoot at us!
They weren't supposed to shoot at us. Well, good job, buddy, because they...
No turning back. It has to be here.
I'm all up now.
There was something in Dad's research about this.
It was said the Prophet's tomb was hidden in the cliffs above one of the forgotten cities. Legend speaks of an oasis where the Prophet was laid to rest.
Just gonna one in one hand that. I'm a boss chick.
Something's here. Could this really be it?
Shouldn't be that surprised. Like, you were like betting everything, including your life, on it.
Years old, at least. It all lines up. Incredible. Some kind of marker. I can't quite make out the translation. This way. Prophet. This is it. Dad was right.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to change the game I was playing on my Twitch and Mixer and Facebook and whatnot. Why did that phone just go off and say somebody just logged on to the Xbox?
Shown here, performing healing miracles. Dad's notes mention this. It's some sort of marker. Byzantine script, but I can't quite make it out. He led his followers through the desert, to the oasis. Entrance. It's amazing. If only Dad could have seen this.
I see.
Oh no. They're already here. Got to get inside.
Whoops. I tried to jump, which was fine. Did not let me. Jump! Not let me jump. I don't know. Oh, so waiting for the perfect time and you just gotta jump immediately. Alright. My last attempt. When I die, I'm done. I'm getting a little warm.
The Order of Trinity pursued the Prophet and his people relentlessly until finally confronting them in their hidden oasis.
A way through. Damn it. Come on. There was a battle here. Armed soldiers against religious pilgrims. The Order of Trinity.
My son, the Order of Trinity has received word that the Prophet's followers are building a great tomb at an oasis outside Berea. But more upsetting, while we thought they were building the tomb for their Prophet, Trinity now believes he still lives. We have learned he is preaching his heresy among the local citizens, drawing more to him daily with his tales of how he conquered death. He is a liar and a heretic, claiming miracles that come only from the divine. You swore he was dead. Have you failed us?
Yes.
My
The Prophet, slain by the Order of Trinity. Damn it. That was too close. They're blasting their way in. That wall looks weak. Let's hope this works.
It worked. Fancy.
We made it, Dad.
I don't know. I thought like they had to time that thing. Okay, here we go. No! Okay. It worked. I fell off and I thought I'd have to go redo it, but it worked. Oh my goodness. Okay.
My lord, what you say is impossible. I myself drove a spear into the Prophet's heart. I saw him die. Doubtless his people have propped another man up in the slain Prophet's robe to continue his lies. They are broken, discredited, and exiled. We will head south and put the rest of his people to the sword. But the Prophet is dead. This I swear.
This year, unwrap more holiday magic with
when you switch to Fios Home Internet. Get our fastest speeds available with Fios Internet Connection Plus TV at our best price ever, $69.99 per month. And if you switch now, you'll also get a $100 Visa prepaid card on us. There's never been a better time to get Fios. Offer any one of 20 taxes, equipment, or recommendation, and other fees and terms apply. Wire speeds up to 940/80 minutes. Availability wireless and Wi-Fi. See what is the contact with people. Only applications required. The right Visa prepaid card is from anything that FDIC card expires.
That's it. I'm done. I'm over it. It is almost 2 o'clock anyway, so good time to call it quits. There we go. Alright, so I want to say thank you to everybody that came out. I appreciate it. Everybody who comes out all the time, whether it was Facebook, Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, whether it was for a minute, 5 or 10 or an hour. I want to say thank you to Zero for the games. Thank you to Armored Ozzy for the games. Apologies to Grim. Me or Zero didn't even see that you got on. We were going to invite you once Ozzy left, but it said you had signed off like a minute before that. So yeah, my bad. I want to say thank you to Zeddy for hopping in the chat. And Miss Cassandra for hopping in. To ZLG people. I also appreciate the engagement I get on the social medias. It's Mechanic on all socials except Twitter. It's Mechanic G. Also follow Zero Logic Gaming on Instagram and Facebook. Also follow Zeddy. Follow Armored Ozzy. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for coming out. I really do appreciate it. Oh, I got a digital tablet, so now I'm gonna work on refining my logo and actually getting some merch out for my channel, not just a Zero Logic channel. Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate everybody. It's a Friday night. I know people are doing stuff, but some of you just found me worth hanging out with at least for a little bit, and I appreciate that. To those who didn't stop by though,